Hey, welcome back to day 33 of Project Me. And it's been 3 days since that last video, which sort of laid out very much how I felt after that exam. And I just rewatched the video, and I mean, I was surprisingly composed, for how terrible I felt after that. I'm actually a little bit shocked and impressed at myself for handling it the way I did. I'm really happy with my reaction. It's not something I could control after I got out of that exam room, and I think I subconsciously recognized that, sort of distanced myself from that feeling of regret, I suppose. I mean, there was definitely an element of that, but it was more in the sense of what can I do better next time than it was, being the victim or something like that. So I am quite impressed with myself. So just wanted to say that first of all, and we'll talk a little bit about how I've tried to move on and what my process has been. Just maybe feedback will be helpful. If anything else has worked for anyone else, and yeah, we'll get there when we get there. But yeah, first of all, gratitude. Start the day off, or start the evening off, start the night off positively, I suppose. I'm doing this video at night. First of all, grateful to mum and dad. They have been checking in with me probably about 3 times in the last 4 days. So really grateful to them for that. They very clearly care, which is something you definitely want. So yeah, really grateful that they have been checking in. Very nice of them for that. Second of all, grateful to one of my flatmates. She popped in today just briefly to grab some books before she went back home. It was so odd because she lives in a city about maybe 2-3 hours drive away from where I am, and so she drove all the way here just to get some books, stayed for about maybe 10 minutes maximum, and then drove back home. It was so funny to me. She knocks on my door and she goes, "Hey, I'm back." And I go, "Oh my god, you're back." And then she goes, "Yeah, I'm actually leaving in 5 minutes." So just cracked me up. I lost it. That was funny. It was nice that she knocked at my door and said hello. Third of all, I'm grateful to me. Why not? I'm grateful that I have been so intent the last, 2 months with the start of this project on improving my mental health. I'm so grateful that I've decided to take the step to try and find a path forward for me. I'm grateful that I care enough about myself to do that. A bit of an unorthodox grateful thing, but I think I should just celebrate what I've done for myself, I'm still not anywhere near I want to be, and I probably never will. But I've made steps forward, and that's what matters. So, thanks, buddy. So, yeah, let's get into what's happened since the exam. So, obviously, I went home that night feeling, devastated. Was not happy. I decided to go out. I think it was after I recorded the video. I went out and I met some friends who also took the exam. I didn't drink because I was feeling quite down, so I watched them drink, which was alright. But yeah, we had a good time, which was good enough to kind of lift my spirits a little bit, or at least give me a distraction, as it were. And then I met some other friends. One of them was going to some island overseas for their break, so it was nice to say goodbye to them before she left. Yeah, that was the night there. That was good in the sense that just getting out of the house, getting out of my room, getting out of my prison, my cage here, it forced me to escape those looming thoughts, right? So just good to change the environment, I think, especially when something like that happens, because when something bad normally happens, I might, for example, go into my room and I just kind of wallow in the pain, just roll around in it. I don't address it. I just kind of just let it linger, because I'll come into my room and I don't want to be bored, so I start working. And so I leave the emotions unaddressed. So this was good because it changed the scenery. It meant I didn't have these emotions looming over me the entire time because I was distracted with other people. You know, people are a good distraction if you let them be. And the next day, that was when I started asking the hard questions. So I sat down, I wrote this long list. Actually, sorry, I think I did that Friday as well. I think I did it Friday before I left. But I wrote this long list of everything that's been bothering me over the last 2 months. Things I need to do, things that need to be addressed emotionally or mentally or whatever. And so I've broken them down a little bit. So I've got this little habit section, I've got this learn section, and kind of this abstract how with a question mark section for things that I need or want to address, but I don't know how. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about it over the next few days once I've done a little bit of work on that. But the main thing was, I think, the really important thing that got me back on the right track. And I'm still not on the right track. You know, this is very much a work in progress. I'm a work in progress. Very much so. But having a plan, having a direction, having a next step, I think was really important in moving on from that perceived failure, that perceived end of the world. And so I'm really happy that my first reaction wasn't to sit and mope and be disappointed and play the victim. My first reaction was, okay, I feel lost right now. I need to find a way forward. And I think that's a really commendable thing. Not just me, but I mean, you look at other people who go through their own challenges and you often judge them by how they react to them, right? So when someone faces something really, really hard and they give up, you know, maybe it's fair enough. You know, it can be really, really hard sometimes, so you can't really fault them for giving up. But when you see people who do give up and you juxtapose or you put them alongside people who bite their lip, bite their tongue, and they power through, like that is where admiration comes in, because you admire those people for powering through all that pain and challenge, whatever it might be. So I'm happy that my reaction was to find a next step forward. I don't know where I'm going, but I know the next step, and that's all that matters. So, yes. But yeah, the next step after, you know, thinking about this was delegating it to different days. So, you probably can't read this, but I have this planner. I've been using it for a while. I've gotten into the habit of writing things down just because it keeps my mind organized. So highly recommend that, by the way. But I've delegated I've allocated different things on this list to different days that I will do. I'm a little bit behind because some things took longer than I expected them to, and that's okay. I'm on break, I have time, it's okay. I'm still moving forward at a good pace. But so, for example, I finished my exam reflection, which was basically me just journaling for about 30 minutes about what went wrong, what I think went wrong at least, and how I can improve on that, what I can do better for this coming trimester. So I did that. That was the very first thing I did on Friday, the day after the exam. Very first thing I did. But crossed out a bunch of other things on the list, and this is really just a way of organizing this huge list of things so that I have a clear path forward, right? I don't want to have this huge list, because I mean, it's one thing to write a list, you know, get it off your mind, but then you're left with a huge list of things to do. So the next step, of course, is organizing how you go about going through that list. And so for me, that was delegating these tasks or these ideas to different days of the week and just getting through it on these days of the week. Is there anything I want to share that's quite pertinent? No, I suppose we'll just talk about the exam reflection. Where's my little journal that I used? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so first thing I did was talk about how I felt. Devastated. I was absolutely gutted. And then I set up my top priority, which was reflecting on what went wrong, how I can improve in the future, and putting these ideas into practice. So after that, I addressed the root problem, which was I seek for academic validation, right? So I spoke about how I value intelligence and I crave the idea of embodying it, both in my view and the eyes of others, so on and so forth. I won't bother you with all of this, just because it's largely irrelevant. You just need to know that the reason that I care so much about my grades is because of academic validation. And then second priority after that is my career. So then I laid out my irrational fear, right, of not being academically validated, and then I asked, am I looking at this the wrong way? So I tried to be very brutally objective with my underlying fear, right? So the first thing I said was, my intelligence is not defined by my grades. And then I went off on a tangent about how they're just one facet of how intelligence might manifest in reality. Basically all that. There are other ways that intelligence is demonstrated, and we know this because you look at the different types of intelligence. There's emotional, there's interpersonal, a whole bunch, right? So to think that my intelligence is defined by grades is absolutely not true. So I needed to integrate that into my mind. I needed to embrace it. And the second thing I said was, if I am smart, does that make me better than other people? It should not. My own intelligence, or rather my perception of it, should not be dependent on the achievements of others. I am no better than anyone else in any inherent way. I have strengths and weaknesses just as all my peers do. Therefore, my idea of success should not hinge on the rise and fall of my peers. We are all uniquely different, and this manifests itself in different ways. I think that's just an important point. I think I can be, like everyone, I suppose, a little bit narcissistic. I want to be doing better than others because that means I'm better and therefore, I'm successful. Objectively, not true, right? So it was good that I had the chance to address that. And then after that, I went into what went wrong in the exam. So I talked about maybe being a little bit unconfident going in, because there was one key aspect that I feel like I hadn't practiced enough, and I only felt that in the day before the exam. And then I talked about some of the other causes, and then I asked, how can I mitigate these going forward? How can I improve? So I talked about what I can and cannot control. I cannot control the time pressure. I can control how I react to the time pressure. So in the exam, for example, I got huge tunnel vision. I was a little bit panicky when I was reading through the legal case that I had to analyze and respond to. So given the time pressure, it's understandable that I got tunnel vision and I was acting panicky. But going forward, I need to remember that they've given me adequate time. I can afford to read the problem properly, and then I can take time to respond. Right? So that my reaction is what I can control, not so much the external factors. And then I came up with a plan. Not so much a plan, I haven't really planned it out, but I came up with some things that I can do this coming trimester to put me in a better position when exams come around next trimester. So for example, attend office hours regularly, use accredited study techniques to capture necessary information, just improve my method of studying, really, and consistently review material periodically throughout the trimester, because spaced repetition is hugely important. And then lastly, I talked a little bit about why I wrote this list, which was to eliminate my distractions, right? Writing this list lets me get everything out, and it lets me get everything out of my head onto paper, where it's less abstract, less chance of it looming far above me somewhere in my head. It makes it real, and it makes it real enough that I can address it. And that's the important bit, because if you keep all these things in your head, I find at least that I don't address them, because they kind of drift in and out of the conscious mind, right? One minute I'm thinking about ice cream, the next minute I'm thinking about how badly I did in this one particular question in the exam, right? If I write it out onto paper, it's no longer there, right? Because I can address it. I can finish that thought, eliminate it once and for all. there's no chance of it coming back into my mind and torturing me. So that was why I decided to write everything down. I think putting everything in from my head into reality, onto paper, was a huge thing in helping me move on. So highly recommend that to anyone else in a very similar position when it comes to self-reflecting after a tragedy. So that's what I found in the last 4 days since the exam. I'm feeling better. I could be a lot better, but like I said, all that matters is that I have the next step in view. Right, that's all I need to worry about, having a next step. And I've got the next step. So I'm happy. This is, I think, we'll talk about purpose in another video, I think. But this is, I think, what purpose is. Maybe. I need to give it some more thought, but maybe purpose is just knowing your next step with a broad idea of what you might want. And recognizing that what you want is going to change. I'll think about it some more, and we'll discuss it later. But anyways, that is how I've moved on. I hope something in this was helpful if you go through something very similar. I'm going to keep trying to figure out what's going to work for me and how I can keep getting better and how I can move on. But yeah, no matter where you are in the world, I hope you have a wonderfully fantastic day, evening, night, morning, lunch, dinner, breakfast, brunch, whatever it might be. Have a wonderful day. Cheers, guys. Take care.